The Lightning showcased the good, the bad, and the ugly in their two weekend losses against two of the top teams in the Western Conference. But what can they do to get back to form when they return home later this week? Find out the answer on today's episode of Locked On Lightning.
You're Locked On Lightning, your daily podcast on the Tampa Bay Lightning, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Thank you all for tuning in and making Locked On Lightning your first listen every day. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And if your team is the Tampa Bay Lightning, this is the show for you. I'm Josh Sperber, the host of today's episode of Locked On Lightning, which is sponsored by Indeed. Still searching for a great candidate for your company? Don't search, match with Indeed. And the Lightning are still searching for their first win of November. A 5-3 loss to the Minnesota Wild on Friday, and then a 7-4 loss to the Winnipeg Jets, a late surge for the top team in the NHL. That put them atop of Tampa on a 7-4 margin Sunday afternoons. And it's not the way you want to start off the first full month of the season. But I think there are definitely some positives, some negatives from the Lightning's losses, and the first being which their early starts. I think the Lightning play better when they get out of the gate quickly, when they are immediately looking for chances inside their offensive zone. And they got those in the first period relatively early on. Against Minnesota, they crashed a rebound of a Victor Hedman shot, turned into an easy wrister for Braden Point at the end of the first period, and it was Brandon Hagel who got an unassisted goal in the first against Winnipeg. In fact, the Lightning scored the first two goals against the Winnipeg Jets, top team in the NHL, and led 2-1 after the first period. But I think the Lightning just need to just keep their foot on the gas once they take the lead. They've got one of the best passers and one of the smartest passers in the entire NHL in Nikita Kucherov. When he's on the ice, I mean, you want to see him quarterbacking, point guarding, whatever you want to call it. You want to see him in full control as Lightning's offensive general, picking out passes, sending guys in on attacking runs on the offensive zones, and just picking his spots, because Kucherov does that in ways that most players in the NHL just cannot, to be honest. And I think unleashing that offense early and often just puts that much more pressure on the opponent and could play to the Tampa Bay Lightning's advantage. We are going to talk some more about the defensive improvement, because that is an issue that has been hampering Tampa all season long. I think there have been a lot of defensive plays where Vasilevsky has been let out to dry. And I think that, you know, the number one goal the Lightning need to focus on is improving their defense. And this road trip, they allowed just 2 goals against Colorado, but then 5 and 7 in their last 2 games, giving the Lightning 14 goals allowed in their last 3 road games. And they've got another one on Tuesday coming up against St. Louis, which is hopefully going to make things a bit easier. St. Louis, of course, not as high in the standings as the Avs, Jets, and Wild, but even taking one of those 3 games has to be a positive. I mean, the Avalanche and the Jets are 2 of the teams that at the end of it all might be standing there waiting for the Lightning if they hopefully get to the Stanley Cup Finals. The Avs are not as high up in the standings. They're currently 5th in the Central Division behind the first place Jets and the 3rd place Minnesota Wild. But part of that is because they're in a tough division. I think, though, Colorado is still a contending team, and that win is big. They had leads against Minnesota and Winnipeg. They just didn't hold on to those leads. And I don't think it was much about bad penalties or giveaways or things like that. But, you know, the Lightning they just need to step things up on defense. And, you know, sometimes it's going to be catching Vasilevsky on a bad day. Sometimes it's going to be just bad defensive line play from the Lightning. But I think defensive is something that they're going to have to address, whether it be at the trade deadline, through the AHL, through free agency, all things we're going to talk about in the 3rd segment of this show. But, you know, I like to see the Lightning attacking early and getting some power play goals. They got 2 power play goals in 4 attempts against Minnesota, and then they were 1 for 2 against Winnipeg. And especially with the Lightning's makeup as a really offensive-minded team. I mean, that is their identity. They push the puck forward. They're going to try and score more goals than you and beat you in a shootout. That is how the Lightning are winning most of their games at this point in the season. They're just putting pucks on net. They're being smart about their shots. So when it comes to power plays, one of the reasons that it was so stressed by Lightning coaches is because it's important for an offensive-minded team to take advantage of any mistakes that any team makes. And that's what the opportunities the Lightning get on the power plays with those extra man opportunities, with the amount of goal scorers they have on their team. These are opportunities that they must cash in, especially if they're going to be making defensive mistakes and they're not going to be they're not going to be limiting the opponent's goals. And I like the fact that the Lightning kind of spread things around, but they just seemed pretty quiet in the third period. Nikita Kucherov, after he tied the game, 2 empty net goals after Dylan Sandberg's winner less than a minute afterwards. I think in Sunday's case, they just got too excited. They maybe, saw the task as a little daunting against Winnipeg and maybe looked a little too closely to the standings before they played the game, but they can't worry about playing the matchup. I mean, you look at the teams that Tampa has beat this season. Vegas has been a perennial power in the last couple of years. They shut down Ovechkin and the Capitals in their last home game. As much as the Predators have struggled with Steven Stamkos, they beat them in overtime in a relatively low-scoring game. And that season-opening win, Carolina on the road, then Vancouver at home, also 2 solid teams. New Jersey's had a great start to the season. I mean, the Lightning have had a difficult schedule to begin the year. It's all going to balance out, but, I mean, that's not the kind of thing that should matter to the Lightning. They need to just win games, and they have done that for the most part. They're over 500. They are at a solid point, 1 point behind the Florida Panthers, second in the standings in the Atlantic Division with a game in hand. And I think that that's a good place for the Lightning to be after the first month and change of the season. This is a team that we talked about at the beginning of the season as, kind of a bubble playoff team. They were the 4th wild card spot in the East last year, lost to the eventual champs. And, they lose a big name player like Stamkos, and their status as division powerhouses is going to change. The Lightning have a target on their back because without Stamkos, the rest of the league just, I don't think, looks on them as dangerous of a team, as complete of a team. And the Lightning need to prove them wrong because they've been inconsistent to start the year, yes, but when they've been hot, they have been elite, and they have been taking advantage of their shots. They've been taking smart shots for the most part. They're not trying to force anything offensively, and they're continuing to get steady goal production on the offensive side of the puck. Now, the next thing that really needs to come into play is the defense side of the thing, of the game. You've got 2 very experienced lines on lines number 1 and 2. Hedman and Moser have been great. And then McDonough and Cernak, that's a Stanley Cup winning line too for the Tampa Bay Lightning. I mean, they've got the talent on defense. It's just a matter of getting these, just getting it fully on track. I mean, just something isn't clicking defensively, whether they need more press from the offense in transition or what. I mean, it's just something needs to be done about the Lightning defense. And, there are just some times where it seems like it's a little bit too leaky, and that's something that Lightning will need to work on. And that's something we'll talk about in the third segment of the show. But the next segment, we'll talk about the biggest devastation of the weekend. Erik Cernak and Braden Point both picked up injuries in the weekend game. Cernak did get in the game against Winnipeg. Braden Point left early with an injury and did not return. And Braden Point is a very difficult guy to replace. One of the better scorers in the league and the Lightning's top center. So what are they going to do if Braden Point is forced to miss an extended period of time? You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. Prize Picks is the best way to get action on sports in over 30 states, including the great state of Florida. Prize Picks is the only real money daily fantasy platform with an injury insurance policy. So if your lineups will stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. So like if you pick Braden Point against the Winnipeg Jets, if your player leaves in the first half and doesn't return, Prize Picks keeps your lineup live. Join over 10 million Prize Picks users and sign up today. If you sign up to Prize Picks today, you'll get $50 instantly when you play just 5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks also offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday, which is tomorrow. Every Tuesday, Prize Picks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value for your lineups. Make sure to download the Prize Picks app today and use the code LOCKEDONNHL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the Prize Picks app today. Use the code below, LOCKEDONNHL, to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Make sure to sign up for Prize Picks today. Prize Picks, run your game. And I was able to get a chiropractic appointment at the Joint a couple weeks ago for my back problems. I'm set to go back in later this week because I have already seen so many positive results in just a few weeks since I went to check out the Joint. They have a team of very knowledgeable and informative and helpful and friendly doctors on their side to help you relieve your pain wherever it may be. I've got a whole stretching program that I've been following, and I can't tell you how much the Joint has helped me. You'll just have to figure it out for yourself. If you go to Buccaneers.com/fan/contests and promotions, make sure to get your first visit for just $19. Check out thejoint.com to check out the Joint location near you, and they have 23 locations in the Tampa Bay area. So injuries are a part of the game in the NHL, and the Lightning may have suffered a pretty devastating one. Braden Point left the Lightning game against the Winnipeg Jets in the second period and did not return. No updated status on his injury. The only real news is that he did not return to the game after exiting in the third period or the second period. Injury still undisclosed, and his status is now in doubt for the rest of the week. And this could lead to some intriguing possibilities for the Tampa Bay Lightning. They could be forced to call up someone from the AHL, from the Syracuse Crunch. Connor Sheary is a name who comes to mind, who was sent down to the Crunch earlier this season. Dylan Duke has been having a nice start to the season. Rookie center with Syracuse, 7 points in 9 games so far. Gabriel Sturck was someone who was on the preseason roster for a good bit as well. So there are some guys to be called up from the AHL potentially just to replace some minutes. But I think one option that the Lightning could consider is putting Connor Geekie on the first line. His point production did not exist on the third line. Bumped up to the second line, got an assist in the first game, and in the couple of games since, he's picked up 2 more goals. And Geekie has not had the chance in the NHL to play that much center in the regular season. But even if they wanted to keep him on the wings, he's been mainly in the right wing, but has also played on the left wing where Jake Gensel currently occupies on that first line. Maybe Gensel could move to center and Geekie could play on the wing, or they could switch off. But positionally, that could work out. Seeing Connor Geekie with Nikita Kucherov and Jake Gensel might be just the line of the future for the Tampa Bay Lightning. Gensel and Kucherov are both about 30 years old. Geekie obviously around 20. And, he's tabbed as the offensive future of the Lightning. He has had high praise since training camp, somewhat surprisingly made the team, and has held his own in the NHL. I think, for a rookie who plays as much as he does, would you want a little bit more offensive production from him? Sure. But I think, the production is starting to come, and I think it's only a matter of time before it happens at a much more rapid pace. Geeky at his age is adjusting fairly quickly to the NHL, and he's really starting off a solid rookie campaign. And I think his numbers could only increase if you give him a little bit more playing time and bump him up to that first line. You could also put Anthony Cirelli as the first line center and, move someone like Gergensons up or Cam Atkinson up to the second line. There are just plenty of options on the existing roster as well as the Syracuse crunch. And there are certainly some defenders that you might want to see get called up from Syracuse as well. But, there's a lot of young attacking options that could use some extra playing time if Braden Point does have to miss some time. And I think that, without a lot of creative maneuvering and some Moneyball type handling the situation, it could be a huge loss. You look at the stats on the season, and Braden Point is second on the team in goals, tied for fourth in points with Jake Gensel. And he has 5 assists as well. Gensel, 5 assists, points, 5 assists, put him in 7th place. So, he's top 10 in just about every offensive category as you'd expect, plus minus of plus 10. That's tied for second on the team with Ryan McDonough. He's just been so valuable to the Lightning's offense, whether it's just been picking up loose pucks, getting power play goals, which he leads the team in, by the way. It's just, he's been such a big part of the Lightning's offensive attack, and he's a great complement to Nikita Kucherov. I think Point, Kuch, and Gensel, that first line has had such great chemistry so far this year, and any dent to it is going to be hurtful, and you have to move up guys from that second line. Cirelli, Geeky, and Hagel have been a very productive line together in these last few games. Would you want to split them up? Would you want to move Nick Paul up to that first line, as he's been the guy who's been moving up and down? He was bumped down for Connor Geeky to take his place on the second line. Now maybe he could come up and play in the center or on the wing on the first line. There are options for Tampa in terms of players to replace Point, and I'm not saying that Nick Paul wouldn't do solidly on the first job. I'm not saying that Connor Geeky, wouldn't welcome the challenge and smash it like he has been pretty much every other obstacle in his path so far his rookie season. I think there are certainly options, but, losing a starting player like Braden Point, a key offensive weapon, is just not easy to replace. And I don't know if the AHL at this point would be an option. The Lightning have a lot of young attackers who, could use some NHL playing time, but they just don't have a whole lot of experience. And I think it depends on the amount of time Point's going to miss. I don't think you make a call up unless he's, hopefully not, but unless he is out for a very long time, then you might want to call up a Sturk or a Duke or someone like that. But I think right now Lightning can hold off on the AHL and just kind of rotate the guys that they have on the offensive side. And, see who can step up on their first team on, at the NHL level before they start looking to the minors, before they start looking at the AHL. I think they should, maybe thinking about reorganizing some of their guys. I think for me, the top 2 options would probably be Nick Paul going up to the first line, as he's had enough line movement and he's got enough experience in both the NHL and with the Tampa Bay Lightning that I think just changing his situation it might have the least effect on him. But I just would like to see Connor Geeky get first line minutes. I want to see Geeky play with Kucherov and Gensel, the 2 of the best players currently in the NHL, against a guy who might one day be the face, the future of the NHL. If the Lightning have those kind of expectations for Geeky, as if he is their next great rookie, their next great, offensive legends to step into the pantheon of guys like Stamkos, like Kucherov, Martin St. Louis. some of the great attacking players the Lightning have had, they want Connor Geekie on that Mount Rushmore. And I think a good start to him getting there would be bumping him up to the first line. So I think if Braden Point doesn't have to miss too much time, put Geekie up on the first line for a couple of games until Point can get back healthy. If it's a serious injury, which we hope and pray that it is not, then you might look to the AHL. But that is a place the Lightning might have to look to for their defense, as it has been made quite clear in the past few games that the Lightning need to make some changes on defense. How can they improve the defensive side of the puck as they continue this NHL season? Built is breaking ground as a neighborhood rewards program that hooks you up with points on your rent. Every month, pay your rent and watch the Built points roll in. Use points to jet off on a dream vacation. Put your points toward a flight or hotel stay with 500 or more airlines and 700,000 plus hotels and properties. You can also use your points to book fitness studio classes. Redeem them towards a future rent payment. They're designed to meet your lifestyle. Pay rent hassle-free through the Built Rewards app. Your rent game just got a major upgrade. Built points have been consistently ranked the highest value point currency by the Points Guy and Bankrate. Earn points by paying rent right now when you go to jointbuilt.com/lockedonnhl. That's joinbilt.com/LOCKEDONNHL. Make sure to use our URL so they know we sent you. Join built.com/lockedonnhl today to start earning points with your rent payments. And something you can do from home is bet on games. And the best place to bet on sporting events in the U.S. is FanDuel. You can tackle the NHL season with America's #1 sportsbook, and that is FanDuel. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 to get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NHL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That is FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook and the official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Last segment of the day, the Lightning defense. And I talked about earlier in the episode that the defense just needs to improve. We've seen too many easy shots go in the net past Vasilevsky, and I think this is something that the Lightning will need to address maybe at the trade deadline. I think that they could still be in the position where they'd be on that bubble and be looking to buy, and they might have to trade some prospects for an NHL players, two players who are defenders and have been circling around the rumor mill. Ivan Provorov of the Columbus Blue Jackets, and he might be the more expensive option, and Cam Fowler, 32-year-old defender on the Anaheim Ducks, who might be looking to move someone as well. And the Lightning are going to have to look to maybe Syracuse to trade a couple of guys. I think you might want to – it'll be hard to tell who Tampa is going to want to give up, I think, at this point of the season. But, you know, Connor Sheary is certainly a trade candidate, I think. Gage Gonsalves, someone that they could think about moving. Even Derek Pouliot, who might even be an answer himself. And it, to me, seems kind of like a no-brainer. I don't think the Lightning need to make a big kind of game-shaking move. I just think they need to add some more veteran help to their defense, and Pouliot might be the answer to that. He's been in the NHL in and out of the NHL since 2014, most recently with the Dallas Stars, where he played 5 NHL games last season. And, you know, he might not be better than some of the trade candidates, but he is already with the team. I think he's been a good veteran presence in the AHL so far. 3 goals, 3 assists in 9 games, too. He can contribute on the offensive side of the puck as well as he can defensively. And he's someone that the Lightning might want to give a chance. Maybe if Point goes down to the injury list and they have a roster spot open, they might want to experiment with Pulio in the NHL. I mean, he has not played more than 10 games in the league for a few years now. In fact, the last time he played more than 2 games in a season was 2018 and 2019, where he played 62 with the Vancouver Canucks. He's a journeyman. He's bounced around, but he's experienced. I mean, he's been a professional hockey player for over 10 years now. First round pick by the Penguins in 2012. And, he's only 29, 30 years old. He's got stuff in the tank. And I think that he is someone that the Lightning could use to fill a roster spot and maybe try and shake up their defense a little bit. I think also another benefit of calling up Pulio is it puts a little matchup pressure. It puts a little more friendly competition on the Lightning defense. You've got that third line is essentially up for grabs with Lightning. I think Lilleberg has been locking down one of those spots on the second line, and I think that he's going to get some room to grow. But you look at Nick Perbix and Darren Radish, they're both trying to earn themselves bigger roles on the team. And I think it might be time that they have to, challenge a little bit more. Didn't see Pulio much in preseason. And I think that, with a solid first 9 games in the AHL, he might have earned his shot. I think the first call up the Lightning make could be Derek Pulio, just to bolster up that defense and could foster some friendly matchup competition for the Tampa Bay Lightning defense. But I think the Lightning could be players at the trade deadline. I think honestly they should be. They could maybe even get a cheaper move with trading with a winning team like Timothy Liljegren of the Toronto Maple Leafs, who has barely played in Toronto, mainly been a healthy scratch, just 1 game played so far this season. So he might be someone that the Leafs are looking to move. Fowler and Provorov might be the first 2 defenders traded at the deadline, so it might be a little bit tougher going for them on teams that are going to need to sell off bigger name players to get some young prospects as the cycle of small and large market teams continues. But I think the Lightning could be players at the trade deadline. Obviously, it's November right now. It's not even All-Star break. We've got months to start thinking of that. But I think that is something that, Lightning fans and, like myself, are going to be keeping an eye on. The better the Lightning do, the more likely I think that they make a trade for ideally a defenseman at the deadline or a 2-way forward. I just think they just need a little bit more toughness. It seems like every game they're out hit. They have fewer takeaways in their opponent and have had that in slightly more. It's been more games where they have allowed more turnovers than other teams than not. So, I mean, these are things that they just need to fix defensively, and they might need to go to new players to do it, whether it's Pulio or some of the young guys like Toby Paquette-Bisson, Dylan Gill, one of their rookies, Max Crozier. I mean, they've got some solid defenders in the AHL, so there might be some options that they will look for. But I think it's time to start scratching your head if you're John Cooper and say, all right, what can we do? Who can we add? Whether it's from an external team or from the Lightning farm system. But I'm curious to see what Tampa does with that defense. We'll have another show coming up tomorrow previewing their final game of this road trip against the St. Louis Blues. Until then, my name is Josh Sperber, thanking all of you for tuning in to another episode of Locked On Lightning and making Locked On Lightning your first listen today. For your second listen, find Locked On Fantasy Hockey. Become a fantasy hockey expert and get the edge over your league mates with daily tips from Steele and Flip. Find Locked On Fantasy Hockey on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And make sure to keep finding Locked On Lightning on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. We'd appreciate a subscribe, like, a follow, anything you can do to show that you're supporting this podcast. We do this for you guys, and we appreciate the support that you already give. Thank you again for tuning in. Thank you to all who voted on our poll on X, making our official Bolt of the Month, Nikita Kucherov, who led the Lightning in goals, assists, and points in the month of October. Thank you again for tuning in. Josh Sperber here signing off, wishing you a great start to the week, and go Bolts.